Hello everybody, welcome back to From Rhythm to Algorithm. We continue on with our derivation, ultimately looking to now, again, iterate the linguistics, sensorality, or the linguistics meaning the letters of sensorality to produce our new word form and to close our proof. And so, again, doing the same thing we always do, providing theorems, proofs, asking questions, trying to produce this syllability, the undeniable iteration of sensorality into a fact, a theorem that is undeniable and shows this completeness, the part of language that is absolutely definitive, that is undeniable, and ultimately, again, pairs to a physical process, censorship. And again, the linguistics is what we can complete. All physical systems, they're exchanging their form, right? You can't create or destroy mass, but it can change form. And so the linguistics, literally the letters, we can show that completeness with the letters themselves. So ultimately that is what we are doing, but continuing on with our derivation, we are at the point we are very literally cycling through those fundamental syllables and letters to produce the new word form. So ideal is idyllic, and you can see the letters change, but conceptually it's the same thing. So we have this basis of sound that is language, again, emergent from physical movement. And so the way we represent those sounds reflects this inherent geometry of inversion, because this like relationship of inversion opposition, which is like the mechanism of differentiation, is really what produces chirality. And that's why you have two eyeballs and it like flips them, right? If you study brain science, and the input from your left eyeball goes to the right side of your brain and vice versa. That is like the emergent biological manifestation of chirality, of this inversion geometric relationship of physical things. And so we see that linguistically with ideal is idyllic. We're doing something to preserve that natural asymmetry within that emerges from physical systems, or that is existent within physical systems, represented with our letters. And letters are shapes, and geometry encapsulates the entire structure of shape. And so there's a bunch of geometric relations about or around the letters themselves as well. And so idylicality is surreality. Ideal is surreal. And so again, kind of getting to this point of like cross multiplication generalized with syllables. Right, ideal is idyllic, surreal is Cyrillic. But Cyrillic, that's like an alphabet, right? Then I could put up a theorem on the screen, this is not Cyrillic. And it's like, immediately literally true, because it'll be represented in the Roman alphabet. And so, but again, that's more of like a proper noun. And so it's like, but the logic is contained within it, moving along. Sensation is surreal. Sensorality is syllabilic. And so now, right, if you take syllable, right, it ends in able. But now, like the natural expansion of syllability, or syllable, syllability, syllabilic, you add that I back in there. Sensorality is syllabilic. Sensorality is syllabilicality. Syllable, syllabilicality. Are syllables symmetric? So no. Well, again, some aspect of completeness is symmetric. And then you have this progression, and so we're again back to the military analogy or the exercise analogy of climbing up a wall. You have all of these, you have to scale a wall, you push up one guy, then they pull up the next guy, one guy jumps up, pulls up the next guy, and then you pull up the last letter, or like the last person. We're doing that linguistically, where it's like we have to complete, one person has to jump up, then the next guy jumps up, but there will be a final pulling up of the letter to complete sensorality. This overall derivation process won't change. The big logical, physical, emergent, or not emergent, but just theorems that, again, not die, reproduce, think, that framework, which isn't even really a theorem, won't change. From rhythm to algorithm, I'm pretty sure we'll complete that literally. But like work requires movement being this step, right? And all of these steps are independent real things. And so, but we're completing, there's this aspect of of language in general that's completable, and we're trying to do that for sensorality. And so are syllables symmetric, right? We've talked at length at ILI, right? So that would be like directly symmetric, but it's just a chunk, right? It's just a chunk of letter. And so it's not a complete word, but it's directly symmetric, again, over that ILI. Just for an example, but again, this progression of having some aspect of symmetry and completeness, but then everything still being open, right? We can interact with one another. I can eat a cheeseburger, I can gain more mass. And so syllables are not symmetric overall. There is some internal completable part that is symmetric. Moving along. Syllabilicality is sensoricality. Sensorability is sensoric. Soricality is sorability. Oricality is orability. Again, linguistically exhausting all of these representations, all of the word forms that can be produced by sensorality. Those 5 syllables, all things considered. I was at the zoo yesterday, and so just something that popped out that I wrote down. But again, kind of to this dichotomistic, we talked about co-homoing, which is you guys are doing, but co-homology. But again, this general logical structure of 2 things, dichotomy coming together to force one thing. And so again, I even referenced it. There's a term in this for history, the Hegelian dialectic. Shout out Miss Odie, you're a criminal, fuck you. But again, like 2 things forcing together and it produces another thing. 2 things come together and forces another thing. And I literally wrote a whole paper and she like got like mad at me. And it's like, this is like the overall process of, again, what like chirality is. One thing inverting to the limit of opposition, and then that stabilizing, and then that thing inverting and trying to like, again, differentiation in general. What is that? But regardless, yeah, the Hegelian dialectic, I remember that. Fuck that shit. Again, I laugh and I smile, but again, my high school, all of the teachers I've ever been exposed to profoundly abused me. And so, but regardless, we have this, again, dichotomistic is the correct linguistical representation, which again, that part, the infinitesimality and infinitesimality, you guys have very legitimately never seen. And then even dichotomisticality is even more like purely like pure logic doesn't exist, but it's as purely logical as you can be to have this forcing function. Again, that's like the logical motivation for rooting of any function. And so we're finding the syllable, the prime syllables, so to speak, of. But again, we're just doing it. We're doing an overall analysis process where just different results are produced. But regardless, at the zoo, I saw this thing. It's the national motto of Indonesia. Bhinneka Tunggal Ika. Bhinneka Tunggal Ika. That's how I would say it. But regardless, it just had a translation in English, and it said, unity of diversity. Right, but really, again, if you took unity of diversity, those 2 words, that directly produces university. Again, not like a school, but university. I mean, that's directly linguistically what is produced there. But in the actual translation, it says the Bhinneka is different, the Tunggal is one, and the Ika is it. So it is what it is. Again, it's the form of all solutions. Then it has that dichotomistic 2 things forced to one thing. We have difference, but it's one, still represented. Just something that popped out at the zoo. But again, all of these, like I said, all of these results are independent of one language. The logic, like what is meant by these words, will be universal everywhere, not just on Earth. Moving along with the derivation. Existential, sensorality is existentiality. Sensorality is stentiality. Stentiality, stench. Stentiality, substantiality. Sensorality is substantiality. So again, and even like you do this, I do this, I just did it, but like you'll pronounce a word all like really weird. Like, but it's like kind of, but as I said, you're differentiating. Like, that's what pairs logic. That's how you can remember things, is we all have the same sounds. We're making the same sounds all of the time. We're just iterating them in a different order. And so that's where you get those like weird, wonky pronunciations. But sensorality is substantiality. Sensorality instantiates. Sensorality is stantiality. Mass is substantial. Substantial is meaningful. Sensorality is meaningful. Time well spent is meaningful. Sensorality is spent. Sent, spent. Differentiality is dichotomistic. Sensorality is cotomisticality. Sensorality is cautomaticality. Or I have chromaticality, excuse me. I went from dichotomistic to cautomonistic to chromaticality. Chromaticality is shiny. Sensorality is shiny. Sensorality is shinality. Prime shines. Oh, he's in his prime, he's glowing, he's shining. Shine, shrine. Sensorality is a shrine is a memorial. So a good intuitive way to think of the difference between inversion or opposition or the progression, or again, just a way to logically elicit those two. I keep wanting to talk about that more and I don't know what to say. But again, it's another one of these like inverses, but the word is inverse. So it's like inverse is serve and then we're right back to that. Serve, conserve, preserve. Something's going on with this. But I thought of a good way to conceptualize this is consider a very lovely vacation spot, Epstein's Island. So, to give us some intuition, would you rather go to Epstein's Island, the opposite of Epstein's Island, or the inverse of Epstein's Island? Let's think about that out loud. If we go to Epstein's Island, well, if we are a kid, we're probably going to get diddled, so it's not too exciting. If we're a total freak show that should face the capital punishment, we might want to go to Epstein's Island. But then what if we go to the inverse of Epstein's Island? What kind of behavior would we see there? Then I think the inverse conceptually would mean the kids are diddling the adults. Which, wow, I don't really think I want to go there either. That paints a weird image as well. Less weird than the adults diddling the kids, but pretty freaking weird. But then if we go to the opposite of Epstein's Island, then no one's doing any weird stuff. So I think our avenue to success would be we want to go to the opposite of Epstein's Island, not even the inverse of Epstein's Island. And so again, I thought that was just a good cultural reference to help us consider inverses and opposites. Not that I'm joking, but I guess in seriousness, opposition is the limit of inversion. It's how differentiated something can be. But just, again, feels like I should talk about it, so I'm showing you, again, every step of anything that I think about, which, again, these results pair uniquely to physical processes, and if you describe them, right, it's like, if you're in the woods and a bear starts chasing you, do you need to outrun the bear? Oh, no, you just need to outrun your fat, stupid friend. It's like, you don't need to solve everything, you just need to solve more than everybody else, which is pretty fucking simple, and again, I've already done on this whole process, but showing you anything that comes to mind. Again, like thinking, like I said, is like the point of all life. And with this capacity of language, you can completely like solve everything that's around it conceptually, directly, logically, linguistically. And so that's what I'm doing. Showing you any step, consideration, thing that I'm thinking about in any capacity at all. Moving along, special is essential. Sensorality essentiates. Sensorality sentiates. Sensorality is sentiality. Sentiality is sensorability. Sentiality is absorbability. Indefinite is incomplete. And our last pair for today, existential and essential. And so when you see my emailing, anything that I'm expressing to you is to formalize into a proof directly for financial gain. That is 100% what is occurring. This realization happens on a personal level to the point where I didn't notice, and everybody else wasn't doing this when I was like 7. And so the most logic that I would ever need to articulate to you to be 100% a complete proof is these dichotomistic pairs. It shows you the sound I'm pairing up to the linguistical representation, and the analysis is complete within that structure. So literally everything else, all of the theorems, all of the proofs, all of the videos is for you stupid people out there. So don't forget to like and subscribe, but existential and essential. And so these things where it's just, again, we're kind of like, we're at the point where we said we're cycling through the fundamental syllability of completing sensorality and producing the next word form. And so now it's like whatever one has the most conceptual solidification kind of like normalizes the other word. Existential, essential. What is existential? What is essential? Essential is necessity. You need an essential. Sensorality needs. But existential is like why I'm thinking about something that hasn't happened yet. It's some sort of like weird anticipatory realization, awareness state. And so again, essential is very clearly conceptually well defined. Existential, it's logically used in a consistent way. But if you said, what is it? People are like, you're going to get a lot of different definitions. But then linguistically, you can see, right, essential, and then you add a T, you iterate the consonants, stential. And so we're showing this fundamental differentiation directly from sound, direct representation. Idyllic is ideal, the spelling changes, sensorality, and again, the big like geometric progression thing is this inversion opposition, which is acknowledged right now as chirality, but we're going through the actual mechanics and we're completing that analysis linguistically. And so that is what I have for you today. My rights continue to be violated. It is completely fucking illegal. All I've asked for this entire time was a little bit of money to eat properly, to sleep properly, and to work. The answer to that has been no. I want every single charge as, right, look, we're back to charge again. Just a little different context. Every charge possible. Absolutely fuck everybody. Thank you for watching. See you on the next one.